this is one aspect that I forgot to mention. In the future, you can expect, even now in the US, a lot of, there are a few companies who already have, the electric vehicles already there in the market. So when you talk about electric vehicles, basically they are battery operated, and you have to charge the batteries in order to run the vehicle. So once you run the vehicle for a certain distance, you have to recharge it again. So if you recharge it, you have to plug the electric vehicle's batteries into the you have to use your electricity in order to charge the batteries. So for that matter, in the future, in order to go away from the conventional fuels, because the conventional fuel is reducing day by day, the supplies are reducing day by day, they are getting exhausted. So in order to efficiently utilize the conventional fuel, the idea of electric vehicles is it is expected to be quite popular in the future. In the next 10 to 20 years, you can expect it to be quite, the electric vehicles to be quite common. And even in Pakistan, in the recent budget, the government has given a 25% reduction in taxes if somebody wants to import a hybrid vehicle from abroad. It is for the same reason that if you drive a hybrid vehicle, you are not that much dependent on conventional fuels. You are always going to be dependent on conventional fuels, because the energy produced from the conventional fuels is a lot more than what you can get from the electric, the batteries in the electric vehicle. So that is why these days the vehicles that we have in the market, if you run them up to 70 or 80 kilometers, it is going to run on batteries. But if you go above that, then it switches to the conventional fuel, that is petrol. So it's for the same reason that it cannot provide enough energy for the vehicle to go at very high speeds. So because of electric vehicles in the future, the demand on the electricity grid is going to increase substantially. So in order to cater for that demand, also the energy should be managed accordingly in the future, and you have to provide, you have to generate enough electricity to take this particular factor into account, because this is an additional factor that comes with the future smart grid implementation. So why do we need it? I already gave you a few reasons. Obviously, I didn't mention the reasons which are associated with the electricity power generation. How efficiently can you generate power? How efficiently can you locate us? Because the location of the grid also matters a lot in determining the overall cost of implementation. Because if you have a grid which is further away from a certain area where electricity is required, so then obviously the infrastructure is going to cost more, because you have to take the distribution lines towards that particular location, and you have to use a lot of transformers, and the cost of implementation might increase a lot. So there are a few reasons which you can see here to better manage the electricity resources, effectively incorporate the renewable energy generators. And just like I said, by the year 2020, 40% of the world's electricity requirements must be met from renewable sources in order to cut down our dependency from the conventional fuel. So, and it is also to facilitate the entry of new participants into the electricity generation and supply sectors. I'm going to come towards this point. In Australia, they did an experiment. There was a case study. What they did was that in order to encourage people to come towards the renewable energy sources, what the government offered was that they offered a 50% subsidy on solar panels. And what they said that if a certain consumer wants to purchase the solar panel and install it at his home, so as you know that in a 24-hour period, your electricity requirements, your demand for electricity, it changes considerably, and especially at night time you don't use electricity that much. So what the government offered was that, okay, we will provide you a 50% subsidy on solar panels, and what can happen is that if a certain person, he has he uses the solar panel, but he still has some units of energy left, so what the utility provider does is that he can take some of the units away from that consumer, but he's going to give some rebate to that consumer at the end of the day when they charge him monthly or on whatever their tariff, however they charge the consumer. So what happened was that a lot of people, they started saving units throughout the day, and the government used to, the electricity utility provider, they used to take those units from the consumer, and they used to end up charging them very less, because they had to, balance the units taken from the consumer and the electricity provided to them. And in many cases, what happened that many people, they did not used to get any bill at the end of the month, and the electricity utility provider had to pay them money, because they had taken more units from them and supplied them less electricity. So because of that, the government, they went into, they couldn't sustain this particular case, and then they had to roll back all that program. So this is an example of a badly managed, this is a badly managed case. So the management of energy is very important, and the management of tariffs is very important, and the policies that you implement are very important in this particular case, how you charge the consumers. But in this particular case, a new idea emerged from this case, and in smart grids, you can say that the consumers are no longer regular consumers, they are known as prosumers. That means provider. The consumer is now a provider as well as a consumer. So he consumes electricity as well as he provides electricity. So if there is somebody who installs a wind turbine at his house, and he is generating electricity for himself, and he is also getting electricity from the grid, so he can utilize electricity from the grid, but he can also provide electricity to the grid if he is not using that electricity at a certain period of day. So he can benefit from that. So that is basically a new concept that is there in the smart grid. And the last point is give greater levels of information on electricity pricing and consumption to consumers, which will give them greater control over their consumption and help them reduce their bills. It is basically the same concept. But in order to realize this, you have to have, apart from the infrastructure that is there in the smart grid, you also have to have a very good communication infrastructure in place that can in which the consumer can provide active feedback to the electricity utility provider, and the data from the consumer is taken to the electricity service provider efficiently and at real time. So these are some of the other benefits, the drivers for smart grid: energy cost and concerns, to engage consumers, affordable and capable technology, incorporating renewables, just like I said before, and then energy sustainability concerns, to reduce carbon emissions, dependence on imported fuels, that has to be reduced as much as possible, because many countries, they do not produce, they have to import oil from another country, so they have to end up paying a large sum of money. They have a very large import bill. So they have to be even more concerned about this particular fact, and they have to reduce the dependence on conventional energy fuels. And these are some of the statistics taken from a few companies, electricity utility providers in the US. And basically the losses over there, the non-technical losses. Non-technical losses basically relate to the fact that billing inefficiencies, meter tampering, meter bypassing, all of these instances, they come in the category of non-technical losses. In Pakistan, it is a very big problem, because a lot of people, they just hook a wire onto the distribution line, and they just bypass the meter, and then they directly use electricity. The same problem is in India and many other countries in the world. So these are basically all instances of non-technical losses, and just in our province, the annual losses due to this meter bypassing is about 40 billion rupees. So that is why we have a huge energy crisis these days. It is one of the major reasons for this. And if you can see that most of the utility providers, they have resorted, almost all of them, they have resorted to automatic meter reading. But this also does not resolve the issue of meter bypassing, because meter is going to read only that energy which a certain consumer has used. But if you directly hook up